He knew there was a good chance he'd never come back. On his last night, 26-year-old John Chau wrote one final note to his family. "Please don't be angry at them or at God if I get killed. Don't try to recover my body." The next morning, fishermen off a tiny speck in the Indian Ocean, North Sentinel Island, saw figures step out from the tree line. The islanders were dragging something across the sand. It was John. No words, no negotiations, just a clear message from a tribe that had been saying the same thing for more than a century. Do not come here. If you're sensitive to real-life tragedy, you may want to stop here. North Sentinel Island is officially part of India, but in practice it might as well be another planet. It's a jungle-covered island about the size of Manhattan, surrounded by reefs and breakers, guarded by people we know almost nothing about. We don't know what they call themselves. We don't know how many there are. We can't speak their language. We call them the Sentinelese, and they have lived in isolation for thousands of years. DNA from their neighbors in the Andaman Islands suggests their ancestors split off from other human groups somewhere between 25 and 40,000 years ago. Genetically, they're among the most distinct, and therefore most vulnerable, populations on Earth. That vulnerability has a history. Back in 1880, long before YouTubers and missionaries, a British officer named Maurice Vidal-Portman set out to study the tribes of the Andamans. Under the comforting language of science and civilization, he essentially hunted people. When he finally reached North Sentinel, he didn't offer gifts. He grabbed an elderly couple and several children, hauled them onto a ship, and took them to the colonial capital at Port Blair. Within days, the adults were dead, likely from infections their immune systems had never seen. The children, now orphaned, were loaded with European trinkets and dumped back on their island, probably carrying the same microbes that had killed their elders. We don't know what the tribe thought of that visit. We do know that ever since, their default response to outsiders has been arrows. The other Andaman tribes didn't fare much better. Once exposed to colonizers, disease and land theft cut their numbers to a fraction of what they had been. Historians today describe Portman not as a brave explorer, but as someone complicit in a slow genocide. So when modern governments and scientists warn that a single cold could wipe out the Sentinelese, it's not a theoretical fear. It's a pattern. John Chau grew up a world away in the United States, in a devout evangelical household. He loved two things: the outdoors and Jesus. As a teenager, he discovered missionary databases like the Joshua Project, which list unreached peoples around the globe. North Sentinel Island was on that list. To John, that entry wasn't just information, it was a calling. He believed God had chosen him to bring Christianity to the most isolated tribe on Earth. For years he read everything he could about the island and the Andaman peoples, wrote prayers about them, and trained his body for hardship, hiking, camping, survival courses. He eventually joined a missionary training organization called All Nations. Their boot camp included role-play exercises, trainees blindfolded and dropped into fake, tribal villages built in the American countryside, where actors in costumes shouted nonsense words and pretended to be hostile. The point was to toughen future missionaries, to make them comfortable preaching through fear and confusion. John also knew the legal reality. The Indian government had declared North Sentinel and its surrounding waters a prohibited zone. Entering without permission could mean prison time. The ban existed to protect the tribe from exactly the kind of contact he was planning. He decided to go anyway. In November 2018, John bribed a group of Indian fishermen to take him close to the island under cover of darkness. They towed his kayak behind their boat, dropped anchor outside the restricted area, and watched as he paddled toward the surf. His diary describes his first landing. He shouted Bible verses. He tried a few words from a neighboring Andaman language. The islanders responded with shouted warnings he couldn't understand. Arrows flew from the tree-line. One, he wrote, pierced his waterproof Bible, but missed him. Shaken, he swam back to the boat. The fishermen urged him to leave. They knew the risk, both from the tribe and from the law. He had already lost a case of supplies, including his passport, in his panicked retreat. Going home would be complicated. To John, those were just more signs that turning back would be cowardice. That night he wrote his final note. If he died, no one should be angry with the islanders, and no one should try to retrieve his body. Then he asked the fishermen to take him near shore one last time at dawn and leave. The next morning, he stripped down to his underwear, hoping to look less threatening, grabbed his Bible, and swam for the beach. No one outside the jungle saw what happened next. What we know is this: the fishermen anchored far enough out to avoid the exclusion zone and waited. When John didn't return, they scanned the shoreline. Later that day, they saw figures appear at the edge of the forest, dragging a body down the sand. It was John, and he was clearly dead. They left and reported what they'd seen. Under Indian law, and out of respect for the tribe's wishes, no official attempt has been made to recover his remains. News of John Chau's death exploded worldwide. Some people mocked him as a reckless American who ignored warnings and treated a sovereign tribe like a mission field. His father, himself a Christian, blamed the evangelical culture that had encouraged his son's obsession. The organization that trained him called him a martyr, writing that the privilege of sharing the gospel has often involved great cost. But long before John's story, there had been another kind of contact. In the 1970s and 80s, Indian anthropologists slowly approached the island by boat, leaving coconuts and gifts in the shallows and retreating before arrows flew. After years of cautious experiments, they finally stood on the reef face-to-face with Sentinelese, trading gestures and objects in relative peace. That fragile success frightened them. They saw how easily food and trinkets changed behavior, how quickly dependency could form, and how little protection the tribe had against disease. The same scientists who had fought for contact began arguing to end it. They pushed for North Sentinel to be sealed off completely, not as a mystery to be solved, but as a people to be left alone. By the late 1990s, the island was officially off limits. The rest of the world didn't listen. It turned the place into a meme instead. Merch, Instagram pages, fake Google reviews, YouTubers joking about going to the island where they shoot intruders. John Chau wasn't the only person drawn in by that idea. He was simply the one who took it literally. In the end, the story of North Sentinel isn't really about a savage tribe or a heroic missionary. It's about what happens when a tiny group of people is forced again and again to defend the last intact piece of their world from outsiders who insist they know what's best. For the Sentinelese, the safest choice has always been the same: warn first, shoot next, and make sure the message is too clear to misunderstand.